If you've been underneath a rock or hiding in a cave without internet access or a TV for the last couple months, well, congratulations, you've missed the 2024 election. But if you haven't, you're probably realizing now that Donald John Trump is going to be the 47th president of the United States. Today, I want to talk about a little bit about how that's going to impact you, the veteran, if you're a veteran listening to this, or if you're a veteran's family member. So let's get started. Now, in the run-up to the election, there was a lot of talk about who's more favorable to veterans and lots of other YouTube channels talking about what Project 2025 is and isn't and how it's going to impact veterans. And quite frankly, I think a lot of this stuff was clickbait, right? Because, and I'll get into that a little bit more. And to be clear, I want to be absolutely clear on this point going forward. This is not political commentary. I'm not weighing in on whether Trump or Harris would have, what their platforms were, which one's better for veterans or who would have made the better president. It just doesn't matter. You guys can tune into other media streams of choice for the political stuff. But I want to talk about the impacts that I can see based on the regulations, based on the policy outlays and the policy documents. And I'm going to talk about the president's pick or the president-elect's pick for the next Secretary of Veterans Affairs. But first, let's talk about the policy platforms. Donald Trump had Agenda 47, and he also had, or was tied to, something called Project 2025. And again, Project 2025 has probably been beaten to death by other YouTube channels, but I want to touch on it a little bit here because I think it's important. Donald Trump said that he was not affiliated with Project 2025, and this is true. It was actually done by the Heritage Foundation. The reason this Project 2025 document or set of plans has been associated with Donald Trump is because a lot of his former cabinet officials and members of his administration went on to the Heritage Foundation to become authors of Project 2025. And lo and behold, some of the authors of Project 2025 are now finding themselves in the Trump administration or will find themselves in the Trump administration. For instance, the new FCC chairman was an author on Project 2025. Let's talk a little bit about Project 2025 and why I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's going to sound crazy when I say this, but here's why. First of all, in Project 2025 for veterans, there is some truly terrible stuff, in my opinion. And that is reduction in benefits, tightening up eligibility criteria, basically making it harder for veterans to get VA disability benefits, reducing VA disability benefits, various means testing, all designed to reduce the cost of what is admittedly a very expensive program. But why am I saying that's not really a big deal? And this is just my prediction here. It's a lot of the stuff in Project 2025 requires legislative changes. So if you were to want to fully implement Project 2025, you would have to get Congress on board. Even a very conservative Congress is probably going to be reluctant to reduce VA disability benefits or tighten them up because no one wants to look like they're hurting veterans. So I think that a lot of the really harsh stuff where benefits are going to be reduced or criteria for eligibility is going to be tightened up, I don't think we're actually going to see that come to fruition because it's going to require legislative changes that I just don't think Congress is going to have the appetite for. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. We'll have to see. Now, there is some stuff in Project 2025 that I think will come to fruition. And I say that because we've already seen over the past several years a lot of these things head in that general direction. And I think Doug Collins, the president-elect's nomination for the Secretary of VA, is going to be implementing those. But I don't think that they're actually going to be implementing the veterans' benefits side of the house. And I think that they're going to be impacting more of the veterans' health side of the house. With that said, taking a look at Project 2025, one of the things that the VBA will likely do is increase the amount of exams done by contractors or increase the number of contractors who are doing claim and pension exams. We've already seen a trend in this direction, though, throughout the Biden administration. Big changes happened in 2021 and 2022 to increase the number of C&P exams done by outside contractors instead of VA employees. And the reason for that is that they wanted to free up VA employees to provide actual health care. So I think we'll see a continued trend on that. Now, my concern, as I discuss elsewhere in other videos, and if you're a client of mine, I've probably mentioned, I'm really concerned about the quality control over these contractors. Getting good exams has been an issue for as long as I've been in this practice. And if you ask anybody who's been in this practice longer than me, they'll say, yeah, getting good quality claim and pension exams is a huge challenge. And with the contractors, there's very little quality control over the actual exam itself. I would hope that the next VBA administrator, in this case, who sits at the head of that is future Secretary Collins, will implement a more robust quality control system. So let's talk about the VA Secretary's nomination, Doug Collins. Doug Collins is a global war on terrorism veteran. He's a veteran of both the Air Force and the Navy. He's a lawyer, but his his Air Force job as an Air Force reservist, he's a colonel, is as a chaplain. So he has an interesting and very broad scope of his practice. He was also a former member of the House of Representatives, very much so on the conservative side of things. So he, conservative House of Representatives member. He was he's an attorney, practicing attorney, has his own firm, and a chaplain. So very broad scope of what he does. I suspect what we will see is, from the veterans benefits side, again, more of those contractors, and I think that we're just going to continue on that track. With regards to the Veterans Health Administration, the past is a great indication of what's going to happen in the future, in my opinion. Scroll back to 2018, President Trump signed into law the Mission Act, which really opened up outside care to veterans under the Community Care Program. So what I believe we're going to see is expansions of that program to the degree that it can be expanded administratively. So more referrals to outside care if you are getting your health care at the VA. This can be a good and a bad thing. It's good to get all your healthcare at one place, but it's also good to reduce wait times, and that might be very appealing. I think that this is all probably going to be with an eye towards privatizing the VA healthcare system to the degree possible and to the degree allowable by statute. That's what we might see on the VHA side. That can be done, a lot of that can be done administratively, not just through regulation, but through just policy changes and how the organization is run. Do I expect Secretary Collins to fix all of the VA's longstanding problems? I do not. I think that the VA is a large bureaucracy, has been that way for a long time, and I think it's going to be very, very difficult to fix a lot of the long-standing problems the VA has. I want to run a little experiment, though, here. What would I ask Secretary Collins to do if he called me up and said, Andy, give me a 100-day plan for after I get confirmed by the Senate? What would you change? And quite frankly, I don't see anybody in DC calling me, regardless of who won. But here's some things I would consider doing. I would look at process improvements in the way VBA claims, Veterans Benefit Administration claims, are processed. What are lessons learned? How are decisions made? How is accuracy recorded? How are younger employees trained and corrected when they make mistakes on claims so that they don't have to be appealed? I would do a deep dive into that because we're seeing a lot of the same mistakes happen over and over and over again. So I would make that a priority as to creating feedback so that when younger or newer employees or lower level employees do an error, that they are not corrected in a punitive way, but corrected in such a way that they stop making the mistakes and learn to do things properly. I'm not seeing that. And I have a number of examples that I'm not going to get into here, but you get the idea. I would also focus on revamping the examination system. I would revamp the examination system to make sure more exams are pre-screened, or more exam requests are pre-screened by medical providers so that exams can be broader and more encompassing. Right now, the contractors get very specific questions, and sometimes those questions just don't make sense. I talk about this in another video, but this causes huge delay because a low-level employee is going out and ordering an exam based on random theories of service connection that may have very little basis in what's actually in the file. So I would add pre-screening mechanisms to make the exam requests more responsive to the actual veteran's condition. Third, I would revamp all the forms, and I've been going on about this for years. The fact that if you disagree with a decision, there are 3 or potentially 4 separate forms you could file, it's insane. It's also insane that the request for medical records is a multiple page document. It's actually a 2-part document they have to complete. Everything should be simplified. Simplify, 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 because you shouldn't be creating errors just because the forms themselves are complicated. I would also want to see a very robust quality control program, and I'm going to say this again, a very robust quality control program for claim and pension exams. Are they sending out secret shoppers to these CMP exams to verify quality, to verify that the examiners are using goniometers when measuring range of motion, that their opinions, when they render opinions, are based in fact, that they're actually doing research to substantiate theories of service connection. So I would want to see a robust analysis of this program. And I actually think that a robust analysis of this program would yield to cost savings down the road because we wouldn't be doing exams 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I have clients who've now gone to 5 separate C&P exams for this same condition because no one's looked at the file, no one's done quality control on the examination process, but also no one's gone into the file and gone, wait a minute, we have what we need for service connection. Why do we keep sending this guy to more exams and costing the taxpayer money when service connection is appropriate? Those are some of the things I would focus on in the first 100 days. I would also push back to Congress a little bit on these processing time goals. Right now, Congress wants to see metrics of things being done in 120 days, new claims being processed in 120 days or 140. It doesn't really matter what the number of days are. And quite frankly, I don't think that these are proper metrics. I think that the proper metrics are accuracy. Were the proper exams ordered? Were the exams, when the opinions were rendered, were they based in science? Were they generally correct? Was the file adequately reviewed? So I don't know how to come up with these metrics, but I know there are a lot of smart people working at the VA and a lot of smart people out there working in government or in the private sector who could figure out how to create proper metrics that focus less on time and more on quality. It sounds silly, especially when folks have been waiting, you're thinking like, Andy, you need to focus on time because things are taking forever. Well, the reason things are taking forever is because the VA is doing things 2, 3, 4, 5 times. They're not getting the information they need on the first time. They're not adequately communicating to the veteran what's needed. Again, because so much effort is focused on time, the VA winds up checking a lot of blocks, but not actually working for quality. Those are, again, just some of the things I'd focus on in the first 100 days. Secretary Collins, if you're watching this, give me a call. Or don't, just watch my video. Either way, I'm happy. Those are some of the things I'd focus on in the first 100 days. Those are some things to look forward to. I don't think we're going to see any radical changes on day one in January of 2025 or even by the end of the year in 2025. Big changes take time, regardless of what Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to tell you, especially when you have an organization of 400,000 people. I also don't think that a lot of these changes are going to hurt veterans ultimately because all of the really damaging stuff that's in Project 2025 requires legislative changes, and I don't think anyone has the appetite to start cutting veterans' benefits. That's my take on this. I could be wrong. I'm open to being wrong, and quite frankly, I haven't accurately predicted an election in a number of years. So, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And maybe this is all wishful thinking. Let's hope, again, for all of our sake, that the Secretary Collins is an effective leader and Donald Trump is an effective leader in improving the VA disability benefits and healthcare systems, and hope for the best. But of course, stay on top of the news and write your congressman if things don't turn out the way they should. Like I said, that's my take. If you have a VA disability benefits claim that's been denied or you've been underrated, reach out and give us a call. Remember, do so quickly because you've got 1 year to maintain that continuous pursuit and the best possible effective date for the highest amount of back pay and the proper rating. Until next time, take care.